Medicare has a lot of moving parts, especially if you're getting close to retirement or close to age 65 is when you are actually eligible to be able to use Medicare. And so I wanted to go over today a few of those different components and parts. What are the positives? What are some disadvantages of the programs and the various different types of programs? Of course, I can't go into all of the specifics, but hopefully gives you a good high level overview of what Medicare is and what are some of the different options with Medicare. A quick notebook, but before I start on Medicare, Medicare is different than Medicaid. Medicaid is the insurance program that is used to pay for healthcare for those who really can't afford any healthcare at all. And so that is both true for people that are retired or not retired. And so the Medicaid program is kind of a stopgap that the government provides to provide insurance for low income and low asset individuals. And so that's different than Medicare. Medicare is just the age-based program that starts at age 65 and is able to provide health insurance at a very cost competitive rate, mainly because the government is subsidizing much of the costs associated with Medicare. And so when we think about Medicare, there are a few different components to think of. And the first thing is just traditional Medicare. So traditional Medicare is broken into several components, Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B, and there's a bunch of other letters as well. Typically, the main three that you hear about is Part A, Part B, and Part D for drugs. Medicare Part A covers your general hospital visits, things of that nature. So if you go to the hospital, Medicare Part A is going to cover your any sort of major medical hospital event. Medicare Part B is going to cover your doctor's visits, regular doctor visits, and things of that nature. And Medicare Part D is going to cover any prescription drugs. Now, traditional Medicare does not really have any out-of-pocket maximum or out-of-pocket deductible that you reach. So it's kind of a potentially unlimited amount of costs that one could incur in retirement, and that's certainly not a time when you want an unknown amount of health insurance. And so that's where then the government does provide these gap plans, and there's different ones, and they each have a different letter because they all cover sort of different sorts of gaps in that Medicare Part A, Part B, and Part D. Between those plans, anything extra is covered by these gap plans. Now, with traditional Medicare, you are generally going to pay an extra cost out of pocket for your monthly premium when it comes to the gap plan Part D and Part B as well. So you have to sign up for Part B no matter what you do, and that cost ends up being around $150. It's give or take a little bit each year, and it goes up with inflation. And Medicare Part A comes at no cost. It's just and once you're 65, you get Medicare Part A completely free, which is pretty cool. So health insurance and healthcare is a very big worry for a lot of people because it's unknown and it's different. And if you don't get a gap plan, if you do choose to use the traditional Medicare plans, then you do need some sort of gap plan to take advantage or to limit the amount of out-of-pocket maximums that you may pay. Now, there is what's also called Medicare Advantage plans. Now, these are different than traditional Medicare. These are usually offered in a format that's similar to how you would have health insurance through your work, so an HMO, a PPO, or what have you. And so with the Advantage plans, how it's different than traditional Medicare is you still pay for Medicare Part B, which again, that covers you just your regular doctor visits, your annual exams, things of that nature. But the Advantage plan comes in and basically can cover everything else, and it's really like adding a your work employer health insurance plan on top of your Part B Medicare. And usually these come at a much more competitive costs than traditional Medicare. So you're not going to pay nearly as much out of pocket on a regular premium basis. However, there are limitations to these plans, and generally they are in-network and out-of-network plans, and so they only work within the region around your location. So in Florida, there's quite a few options. Depending if you're in other states, I've heard there are some limited options depending on which state you're in. But the Advantage plans are really typically pretty cost effective for most retirees, and some of them don't even come at an additional cost. You're able to sign up, and your Medicare Part B premium is basically covering the entire Advantage plan. Now, that may or may not be what you need from a cost perspective or from a coverage perspective. So it's really good to look at the different options. The Medicare website does give you some tools to do some screening. Maybe you want to screen for your doctors, or you maybe want to screen for certain prescription drugs that you might be taking, and that you want to see if those are covered, because the Advantage plans, as you have probably heard the news during open enrollment time frame, there are a lot of vendors that are pushing and advertising to get you to sign up for their plan, and obviously they're doing that for business purposes, and so they're not going to be able to offer, everybody's not going to be able to offer everything. So there's different advantages to each of those different plans, and so you want to do your due diligence whenever you're looking at the Advantage plan. Yes, it might come at a better cost on a month by month basis, but perhaps you might have to have more out-of-pocket deductible, or maybe you like to travel and you will be all over the country. Those Advantage plans, maybe if you're out of your area, are going to be at a lot higher cost potentially if you say you're traveling in the the Smoky Mountains and you twist your ankle while you are hiking or something of that nature. That might come at more of a cost. So there's a few different differences between those plans. So you have your traditional Medicare and you have your Medicare Advantage plan. Again, you want to evaluate the cost, you want to evaluate the coverage, you want to evaluate your doctors, your prescriptions, and see I always like to think when I'm evaluating health insurance, what's the worst case scenario and how do we plan for that appropriately? Then once you have all of that information, you want to make sure that your monthly budget is accounting for those costs, that you have a good emergency fund to be able to pay for any sort of surprise costs when it comes for insurance, for Medicare insurance in particular. And then as a reminder, Medicare does not cover any sort of long-term care. I just recently talked about long-term care and the costs associated with long-term care. So you may want to check out that video or check out that article on my website about long-term care. But Medicare only covers up to 100 days of any sort of long-term care needs. After that, it's really on your own if it seems like you're not getting any better. And so a lot of considerations there with Medicare. It can be kind of confusing. You're getting a ton of stuff in the mail advertising. But if you break it down, the first main choice is, do you want to do traditional Medicare, which might come at a higher ongoing premium, but gives you better coverage throughout the country, or do you want to do an Advantage plan, which might come at a lower cost premium, but you then have the in-network, out-of-network potential trade-off there to think about. And if you're not a traveler, that may be less of a worry for you. And so hopefully that gives you some things to think about. My name is Kyle Newell, and I am a fee-only financial advisor here in Winter Garden, Florida. I serve clients all over the Orlando area, Greater Central Florida area, face-to-face or virtually. And of course, I can meet with people all over the country virtually as well, using tools like Zoom and things of that nature. And so if you do have questions, feel free to drop me a comment, send me a message, send me an email. My website is Newell, so NEWELLWM.com, so NewellWM.com. Stands for NewellWealthManagement.com, so NewellWM.com. And this video, of course, is just educational only. No specific advice is given. You should not take this as specific advice because I have not met you. I do not know your financial situation and what options you should choose, but hopefully rather have given you the pros and cons of the different types of plans so that you can maybe evaluate for that yourself. Talk with a health insurance advisor, your financial advisor, tax advisor, estate planning attorney, or what have you to help figure these things out. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks. Take care.